A young woman in her mid-twenties wheeled herself into Judge Caprio's courtroom, but unlike the countless times she had performed this entrance for cameras, today her hands trembled on the armrests. Her name was Madison Carter, and 3 years ago she had made a choice that seemed harmless at first, a little white lie to make her content more interesting. She never imagined that one small deception would snowball into an empire built on sand, or that she would lose herself so completely in a character that she forgot who she really was. Madison had 15 million followers who believed in her journey of resilience after a devastating car accident left her paralyzed from the waist down. Her inspirational videos earned her $6 million annually, and her memoir, Rolling Forward, became a beacon of hope for millions. But Madison had never been paralyzed. She could walk, run, and dance whenever she wanted. She was in court because the truth had finally caught up with her, captured on video by a private investigator in Thailand. As she sat in that courtroom, watching the faces of people she had hurt, Madison realized something that would haunt her forever. She had not just deceived strangers on the internet. She had betrayed people who trusted her with their most vulnerable moments, people who saw themselves in her fabricated story, people whose real disabilities made her costume feel like mockery. What happened next was not just about punishment. It was about a young woman confronting the monster she had become, a community grappling with betrayal, and a judge who understood that sometimes the hardest thing to face is the truth about ourselves. If you have watched this far, do not miss the end of the video, because what you are about to witness is not just the destruction of a career, but the painful, complicated reality of a human being who lost her way in the long journey back to redemption that might never be possible. Tuesday morning, 10 o'clock a.m., Providence Municipal Court. Madison wheeled into Judge Caprio's courtroom, and for the first time in 3 years she felt the full weight of what she had done. The bailiff called, "The State of Rhode Island versus Madison Elizabeth Carter," and she wanted to sink into the floor. Judge Caprio looked up from his bench, his face showing the gentle kindness he offered everyone, regardless of what brought them before him. "Good morning, Miss Carter. Are you comfortable? Do you need anything before we begin?" His compassion, so genuine and undeserved, made something crack inside her chest. "I am fine, Your Honor. Thank you." Her voice sounded hollow even to her own ears. "Miss Carter," Judge Caprio began gently, "you are charged with fraud, theft by deception, and criminal impersonation. I want you to understand that this court is not here to attack you, but to seek truth and justice. Before we examine the evidence, is there anything you would like to say?" Madison had prepared a speech with her, lawyers full of justifications and technical defenses. But sitting there, looking at Judge Caprio's kind face, she found those words stuck in her throat. "Your Honor, I know what I did was wrong. I have known for a long time. I just did not know how to stop." Her lawyer grabbed her arm in warning, but she continued, "I started the wheelchair thing 3 years ago after a really bad breakup. I was making content about my life and nobody cared. I had maybe 2,000 followers and I was struggling to pay rent. One day, I rented a wheelchair for a video about accessibility problems in my city. It was supposed to be educational, showing what disabled people deal with. But that video got 3 million views. Suddenly people cared about me. Brands wanted to work with me. I got invited to speak at events, and I told myself it was fine because I was raising awareness." Judge Caprio listened without judgment, his expression thoughtful. "When did the lie grow beyond that first video?" Madison's eyes filled with genuine tears, not the performative crying she had mastered for cameras. "After that first video went viral, people asked about my story, and instead of telling them the truth that I was just borrowing a wheelchair to make a point, I panicked and said I had been in an accident. I created this whole backstory in about 30 seconds. I thought I would make a few more videos and then quietly stop. But each video did better than the last, and brands started offering real money, life-changing money for someone who had been barely surviving. So I told myself, just one more month, just until I pay off my student loans, just until I have some savings. But there was never enough. The lie just kept growing and I kept feeding it. Judge Caprio's voice remained gentle. Miss Carter, at what point did you realize you had gone too far? Honestly, Your Honor, about 6 months in, I got a message from a teenage girl named Emma who had just been paralyzed in a diving accident. She was suicidal, completely hopeless. She said my videos were the only thing keeping her alive. She said seeing me live a full, happy life in a wheelchair made her believe she could do it too. And I knew, sitting there reading her message, that I was doing something terrible, but I was already in so deep. I had signed contracts, made commitments, built this entire identity. How could I tell Emma the truth without destroying her? How could I tell anyone without destroying everything? Madison's voice broke completely. So I kept going, and every day the weight got heavier. Every message from someone with a real disability felt like a knife in my chest. But I had trapped myself in this lie so completely that I could not see a way out that did not hurt everyone, including me. The courtroom sat in heavy silence. Judge Caprio studied Madison carefully, his decades of experience reading people telling him something important. Miss Carter, I appreciate your honesty today, but I need to show you something, and I need you to watch carefully. Judge Caprio activated the courtroom's video system, and Madison's chest tightened with dread. The first video showed her running on a beach in Thailand, her body strong and free. She remembered that moment, the pure joy of being herself again, even just for a few hours. The second video showed her hiking mountain trails, climbing with ease, her real smile so different from the brave smile she wore for her followers. The third showed her dancing at a nightclub, lost in the music, finally able to move without the constant weight of the lie. Then the screen split, showing those private moments next to her public content from the same week. Madison in her wheelchair crying about accessibility barriers, Madison talking about the pain of paralysis, Madison inspiring millions while lying to every single one of them. Watching herself, Madison felt physically sick. She had become so good at compartmentalizing that she had never seen it this way. The two versions of herself side by side, the truth and the lie existing simultaneously. Your Honor, she whispered, I do not have any excuse for what you are seeing. I was living two lives and I chose the fake one because it was easier and more profitable than being nobody. Judge Caprio paused the video. Miss Carter, I want to read you something. This is from Rebecca Thompson, a young woman with genuine paraplegia. Madison closed her eyes, dreading what was coming. Judge Caprio read, and every word landed like a physical blow. Dear Judge Caprio, I followed Madison Carter for 2 years. When I was in the hospital after my accident, when doctors told me I would never walk again, when I wanted to give up on everything, Madison's story gave me hope. I watched every video. I saved money from my disability checks to buy her merchandise. I told everyone in my support group about her. When I discovered the truth that she could walk whenever she wanted while I never will again, something inside me broke. She did not just steal money, she made my real disability feel like a joke. She made me wonder if anyone would ever believe my struggles are real. I will never trust another disability advocate again. Please make sure she understands what she took from us. Madison was crying openly now, her body shaking with sobs that were painfully real. Your Honor, can I speak to Rebecca? Is she here? I need to tell her how sorry I am. Judge Caprio gestured to the gallery, and a young woman in a wheelchair rolled forward. Rebecca's face showed a mixture of anger and pain that made Madison want to disappear. "Rebecca," Madison began, her voice breaking, "I know sorry is not enough. I know I cannot undo what I did to you. But I need you to know that the help you thought you got from my videos, that hope you felt, that was real, even if my disability was not. You are the strongest person I have ever encountered, even indirectly. Your strength was never because of me. It was always inside you. I just pretended to reflect it back to you." Rebecca's response was quiet, but cutting. "You do not get to tell me what was real about my own experience. You do not get to reframe your betrayal as somehow helpful. I do not need your validation of my strength. What I needed was honesty, and you stole that from me." "You are absolutely right," Madison said immediately. "I am still trying to make this about me, still trying to manage how people see me. I am sorry, truly, deeply sorry, and I know that changes nothing for you." Judge Caprio let the moment breathe before speaking. "Miss Carter, your honesty today is notable, but it does not erase the harm you have caused. Can you help me understand how you justified this deception to yourself for 3 years?" Madison wiped her eyes and tried to gather her thoughts. "Your Honor, it sounds crazy now, but I convinced myself I was doing good. I told myself that the awareness I was raising about accessibility mattered more than the specific details of my medical history. I saw the comments from people saying my content changed their perspective on disability, and I held on to those comments like they justified everything. But the truth is, I was addicted to being important. Before the wheelchair, I was invisible. After it, I mattered. People listened to me. Brands wanted me. I spoke at the United Nations. For someone who grew up feeling worthless, that validation was like a drug, and I was willing to lie to anyone, including myself, to keep it." Judge Caprio nodded slowly. "Miss Carter, do you understand the difference between raising awareness and exploiting other people's suffering?" "I do now, Your Honor. Real advocacy comes from lived experience and genuine empathy. What I did was performance. I wore disability like a costume I could take off when it stopped being convenient. I took opportunities that should have gone to people with actual disabilities. I made money selling a story that was not mine to tell. I turned real human suffering into my personal brand. And the worst part is that I knew it was wrong the whole time, but I kept choosing the lie because the alternative was admitting I had built everything on a foundation of sand." The courtroom was silent, except for the sound of Madison's crying and Rebecca's quiet breathing. Judge Caprio consulted his notes, his expression troubled. "Miss Carter, the prosecution has recommended severe penalties. They want you to serve 30 years in prison, forfeit all assets, and face permanent bans from social media. Given your honesty today, do you believe those penalties are fair?" Madison looked up, her face streaked with tears. "Your Honor, I think I deserve whatever punishment you give me, but if I am being honest, the real punishment is living with what I have done. Every day for the rest of my life I will know that I hurt people who were already hurting. I will know that I made the world a little bit worse for disabled people because now everyone will wonder if the next disability advocate is lying too. I destroyed trust that was not mine to destroy. Prison cannot be worse than that." Judge Caprio leaned back in his chair, clearly wrestling with a difficult decision. "Miss Carter, I have been a judge for 4 decades, and I have learned that justice is not just about punishment. It is about accountability, restoration, and sometimes rehabilitation. What you did was terrible. You exploited vulnerable people for profit. You lied to millions. You damaged the credibility of legitimate disability advocates. but I also see something here that gives me pause. I see genuine remorse, painful self-awareness, and the beginning of accountability. Madison held her breath, afraid to hope for any kind of mercy. However, Judge Caprio continued firmly, remorse does not erase harm, and your victims deserve justice. For the charge of fraud through false representation, I sentence you to 5 years in prison. Madison nodded, accepting the judgment. For theft by deception, I am ordering full restitution of all profits from your memoir and merchandise, approximately $6 million, to be distributed directly to Rebecca Thompson and other members of the disability community you harmed, as well as to legitimate disability rights organizations. Yes, Your Honor, that money was never really mine anyway. I am also ordering 500 hours of community service upon your release to be served at disability advocacy organizations, where you will assist real advocates in their work, and importantly, where you will listen to and learn from people with actual disabilities. Madison's lawyer whispered urgently in her ear, but she ignored him. Your Honor, I will do whatever helps make this right, even though I know nothing really can. Judge Caprio's voice softened slightly. Miss Carter, I am also ordering something unusual. I want you to create a documentary about your deception, your motivations, and the harm you caused. Not for profit, but for education. I want you to interview Rebecca and others you hurt. I want you to show the world exactly how this happened, step by step, so that maybe we can prevent the next person from making the same choices. And most importantly, I want you to show the real faces and real stories of people with disabilities, giving them the platform you stole. Madison looked up, surprised. Your Honor, do you really think anyone with a real disability would trust me to tell their story after what I did? That is not for you to decide, Miss Carter. That is for them to decide. Your job is to offer to listen if they say yes, and to accept it if they say no. Your job is to spend the rest of your life trying to repair the damage you caused, knowing you may never fully succeed. Rebecca spoke up from her wheelchair, her voice stronger now. Your Honor, I have something to say. Please, Miss Thompson. I hate what Madison did. I hate that she lied to me and to everyone like me. But I heard what she said today, and I believe she means it. If she wants to make a documentary showing the truth, showing what she did and why it was wrong, and if she wants to include real disabled voices, I will consider being part of it. Not to forgive her, because I do not know if I can, but to make sure our real stories get told. Madison turned to Rebecca, fresh tears streaming down her face. Rebecca, I do not deserve your willingness to even consider that, but if you give me the chance, I promise I will spend every moment honoring your trust and your story. Judge Caprio watched this exchange with the wisdom of someone who had seen humanity at its worst and best. Miss Carter, you entered this courtroom as an influencer built on lies. You are leaving as a convicted felon with an opportunity to spend the rest of your life doing something meaningful with the truth. The path to redemption is long, painful, and uncertain. Many people will never forgive you, and that is their right. Your job is not to earn forgiveness, but to earn the right to keep trying. As bailiffs approached to take Madison into custody, she stood up from her wheelchair for the first time in public in 3 years. The symbolism was not lost on anyone in the courtroom. She looked at Rebecca, at Judge Caprio, at the cameras recording everything. I am standing because the lie ends today. I am Madison Carter. I have never been paralyzed. I lied for money and attention, and because I was too cowardly to be nobody. I hurt people who trusted me, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to be someone worthy of a second chance, whether I ever get one or not. The courtroom sat in profound silence. Judge Caprio spoke quietly. "Miss Carter, that is the first truly honest thing you have said to the world in 3 years. Remember this feeling. This is who you actually are when you stop performing." Madison was led away, leaving the empty wheelchair behind like a shed skin. Within hours, her confession went viral, not as a scandal, but as a painful, complicated story about a young woman who lost herself in a lie and began the long journey back to truth. Her social media accounts posted a final message, written in her own hand, from jail. "I lied to you. I am sorry. Listen to real disabled voices, not mine. I will spend my life trying to do better." And Rebecca Thompson, the woman Madison hurt most, started a new advocacy platform called Authentic Voices, funded by Madison's seized assets, dedicated to amplifying disabled creators who tell true stories. Sometimes justice is not about destroying someone who did wrong. Sometimes it is about holding them accountable while leaving space for the possibility that people can change, that redemption is hard but not impossible, and that truth, however painful, is always better than the most beautiful lie. Sometimes the most human thing we can do is acknowledge that we all have the capacity for terrible choices, and that facing those choices honestly is the first step toward becoming who we should have been all along. If you enjoyed this story, you can support me by liking it and subscribing to my channel if you have not already, my loyal viewers. See you in the next video. Stay healthy.